All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at Coffee and Quality. If you haven't already, please share in the chat your name and agency. So glad that you're spending your Thursday morning with us here. So I always like to start off Coffee and Quality with 3 simple ground rules. So this is a safe space to learn and share. It's okay to ask questions. We want you to share your knowledge, your experience, your opinions. Everyone has a different perspective and also kind of a different learning level around data evaluation and continuous quality improvement. So we really try to make this space a safe space for learning. And since this is a virtual space, we do encourage you to share video, but completely understand if you're not able. And then as we kind of get into questions or discussion as the session carries on, I might call on you if it's a little quiet. And this is always just an invitation, not an obligation. You can always pass if you're not comfortable sharing. But I hope that you will use the chat. Feel free to raise your hand to unmute so we can have this a dialogue as well and not just presentations. So my other little PSA I like to share before we go too deep into the content for this session is that we have a United Way of Greater Houston Teams account. And so on this Teams account, we have a channel dedicated to Coffee and Quality. And so this is where I will share slides and the recording from today's session, as well as we share different resources, other learning opportunities that are coming up in the community centered around data evaluation and CQI. We share that there. Other people post there. So we really want to, give you this opportunity to engage with each other outside of Coffee and Quality. So if you are not in the Teams account, please drop your name and your email in the chat and I can add you to the account, or you can always send me a direct email and I can get you set up. So hope that you'll do that. So with that, just want to again welcome everybody today, and we're going to jump into our session. So today's Coffee and Quality session is focused on creating and using a CQI plan. But before we dive in too deep, I just wanted to go back to the basics just a little bit. So for those that are new to CQI or United Way of Greater Houston's definition of CQI, I wanted to share that. And so continuous quality improvement is the systematic use of data to improve the effectiveness of programs and services and to communicate their value. So I like to pause on those 3 big parts, right? Systematic use of data, improve the effectiveness, and communicate their value. That's really what CQI is all about. And so when you hear us talk about CQI, that's what we're referring to. And CQI is a formalized, human-driven, cyclical process. It's not about an expensive software system. It's really about the people in your team, your agency, the clients you serve, and the value of their input. So the CQI process is cyclical. It begins with service delivery. That's the work that you do every day with clients, those you serve. You all do amazing work, so it's that work that you're doing, right? And as part of service delivery, you collect data. Then you review that data with your CQI team, who then makes recommendations, which can be the basis for your program modifications and planning that are implemented. And then service delivery begins again. So it's important to remember that the CQI process is dynamic, it's alive, it's evolving. We know that firsthand with COVID and how everybody had to pivot this, right? You had to pivot your data collection, pivot your service delivery. We're masters at pivoting now. And so CQI process is also like that, right? It should be dynamic, alive, evolving. You should feel okay with updating your process as you learn more about what works and what doesn't work. So a little bit more kind of basics around the 8 core components to support and maintain CQI, the CQI process within your organization. So it all starts with leadership buy-in and support for sustaining the environment of CQI, right? So without leadership support, it's just one single employee or a small group of employees who have this desire to improve the work. But you really need that leadership support and buy-in. Thankfully, a lot of leadership is kind of coming along to this and really a lot of emphasis on this. And so you should have this in your agency, but if not, we're here to help with that as well. So you can always reach out if leadership buy-in seems to be a stumbling block for you. And then a big part of this too is that CQI should be embedded within the culture of your agency. So, and every culture needs a dedicated and diverse CQI team with clearly defined leader, roles, and the authority to regularly meet, to assess results, and make recommendations for improvement. So thinking back to that cyclical process, right? They're really in the driver's seat of that. The CQI team should include representatives from a variety of levels and roles within your organization. I always think of this as that they need to be wide, so covering across all areas, and then deep, right? Covering different levels of staff, whether it's executive leaders, program leadership, direct staff, indirect staff, support staff, and then also consider including stakeholders like clients and volunteers in your CQI team. The more diverse your team, the more diverse perspective you have, and really the richer your recommendations can be. The other thing is the CQI process needs to be memorialized with a formalized CQI plan. That's your roadmap for CQI that anyone can pick up and learn to better understand your CQI culture. And we're going to talk more about that today. That's why we're all here today. So along with this, the core components include the CQI process uses data that's directly connected to the program's components, and it's critical to the mission of your organization. If not, why are you collecting this data? Right? And then with that data, the CQI process includes setting goals or targets that build on annual success and challenges. They should drive towards your strategic intent, support your overall planning efforts, whether it's for your agency or your program. And then your CQI process leverages and incorporates client and community feedback. So there should be an opportunity for clients and your stakeholders to provide their input and review of their experience in your work that's then factored into that improvement process. Two more core components. So the CQI process should be based on sound research and implementation of industry best practices. There should be a rhyme or reason to it, right? And it might look different if you are a basic needs, food-focused agency compared to one that's providing workforce coaching. So it might look a little different, but you still have these core components that are helping your agency maintain that CQI culture. And then your CQI culture is supported by ongoing training and learning opportunities. So if your CQI team, your staff are the ones that are driving your CQI culture, you really want to support their professional development around using data evaluation and CQI. So that's kind of the basics. Wanted to get us all level set on that. I'm going to check the chat. I'm going to pause for that. And I do see one question came in. Oh, there it is. From Linda. Hi, Linda. Any suggestions on how we engage youth clients in our CQI process? That is a great question. I think there's different ways you can do that. I would love if anyone is engaging clients or youth in their CQI process to drop in the chat. I think one way is having a youth having representation on your CQI team. If they're your primary clients, there's that don't do with us without us, right? So really having their voice at your CQI team can be one step. But I know some other agencies are doing great work with client engagement. So encourage y'all to drop that in the chat for suggestions. So, all right, we'll keep going. That was the one question I saw, but if I skipped over a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat. So here we want to really center ourselves on today's session. So creating and using a CQI plan. So a formalized CQI plan is like a roadmap. It'll keep all the internal stakeholders on the same page, going in the same direction, right? We're all going to end up in the same place. We have the same goal in mind. So the CQI plan is used for documenting and improving services and process capacity and impact. The CQI plan allows you to describe your approach to CQI, assess your capacity to carry out CQI, summarize current and past efforts, and then identify lessons learned. So your CQI plan should be flexible to meet the needs of your organization, but it also should be formal so it carries on and it can pass through as you have staff transitions, as program changes. So this formal and flexible roadmap is really going to help sustain your CQI efforts within and across your agency. So as I, kind of describe to you what a CQI plan is, we're going to do a little poll real fast. So I'm going to open up the Zoom poll. And so truth time. There's no, please be honest. Does your agency have a CQI plan? Yes, no, not sure. All right, so people are voting. Thank you. Thank you. Keep voting. I love it. Love seeing this. Give another couple of seconds. Looks like majority of people are voting. This is just your honest answer. Do you have a CQI plan at your agency? Yes, no, not sure. I think everybody's voted that's ready to vote. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, share the results. Hopefully y'all see those results on the screen. Yes, no?
Yes.
Alrighty, so majority of you have a agency CQI plan. That was great news, 64%. 15% no. Okay, I hear you. I'm glad you're here at today's session. We're going to get you started on creating your CQI plan. And not sure, 22%. Hey, that's okay as well. You're going to go back and find out you do have a CQI plan, and you're going to use today's session to help refine it and update it, or you're going to use today's session to get started on creating your CQI plan. So thank you all so much for doing our poll. Okay, so let's keep going. So the CQI plan should be multifaceted. You maybe will have an agency high-level plan that then drills down to specific program areas. And it should include the purpose and intent of your CQI culture, goals, and objectives. And then also your the CQI is going to really help. I keep saying this is sustainability, right? We really want this to be in the fabric of your organization. And so by formalizing your CQI plan, you're really helping to maintain that sustainability through time for your agency. And the success that really is tied to the success of your CQI culture. And then this also applies to how you manage your data. So you might have a team designated to managing your data across your organization, or each program is left up to their own devices for that, right? But either way, if you have this CQI plan, it'll help make sure everybody's on the same page and you're all headed in the same direction. So having written process, protocols, and procedures for collecting, evaluating, and analyzing your data can make turnover or program transition less detrimental to your CQI efforts. And then your CQI plan should be updated at least once a year. Hopefully you're updating it more, but at least once a year. So being formal doesn't mean it's static, fixed, or unchangeable. By contrast, it should support the cyclical nature of the CQI process. It's dynamic, alive, evolving. And with that, I do not have a standard template to share with you. Why? Because the CQI plan should be specific and geared toward your agency needs. So I have seen CQI plans in a Word document, in Excel, Google Sheets, in a PowerPoint, on Trello, built out Access databases with a CQI plan. It really needs to be what fits your agency's capacity. What do you have time to create and maintain? And then what's kind of your workflow that feels natural for y'all to house your CQI plan? And this is going to look different if you're a small agency versus a medium agency versus a large agency. And so that's why we don't have a standard template. And the other thing too is if we gave you a template, you're going to be fixated on that, right? You're not going to look for the growth opportunities based on your own unique needs. So there's no template. I will suggest that you use the elements of the CQI process. So service delivery, data collection, review, recommendations, implementation as your anchors to creating your CQI plan. And so in today's session, I'll share some key considerations for creating your CQI plan. And so this freedom and flexibility might excite you and you're going to be really excited about this. Or when I said there wasn't a template, your jaw dropped and you're completely scared now. So no worries, we're here for both. So I'm going to share key considerations And then to provide some inspiration, we'll have a show and share where two agencies are going to share their CQI plans and how they use those in their agency and programs. So let's walk through each of these elements. So, and then I do have a Word document or a PDF I'll drop in the chat here in a little bit that will have all of this compiled for you as well. This is as a handout for today's session. So let's start with service delivery. That's where your roadmap is going to begin. It's the top of the cyclical process too, when you think back of that CQI process. So having a clear understanding of your service delivery model can support creating your CQI plan. Beginning with the description of your agency service system. So start wide here, right? So what's your mission, your vision, agency-wide goals, and then narrow down into the specifics of your programs and services you offer. What are the measurable goals and objectives? Consider how CQI connects and support your agency mission and programmatic goals. So service delivery, getting on the same page about what all you're doing in your agency. And then you maybe have some documents that are helping support this service delivery, like a logic model or a client workflow or journey maps. These documents can help ensure everyone's on the same road, headed in the same direction. And that can be a part of your CQI plan. So tied closely to service delivery is data collection. This provides you the opportunity to think through your data life cycle. What data does your program collect from clients? When are you collecting it? Where's it stored? How often do you analyze the data? So beyond data gathering information from clients at baseline or self-assessment or surveys or other formal methods, are you also including collecting feedback from them to inform your programs, right? So this is a nice way to kind of tie back in that core component of collecting feedback. So how are you collecting that feedback from your clients? Is it just clients, maybe community stakeholders, staff? And then do you have a mixture of quantitative data and qualitative data? Are you asking some open-ended questions so you can kind of look at the feedback from that lens? Or are you also asking some like checkboxes, Likert scale type questions so you can quantify that data? Try to have a mixture there. Once you have the data, what quality assurance checks do you have for your data? We had a whole session last year about cleaning data and how dirty data can really impact your results, right? And so how are you cleaning your data? What are your quality assurance checks? And then how do you organize and store data to ensure quality? And I can't say this enough, document how the data collected supports your measurable goals and objectives. This is really going to help you tease out what data is important to collect and what's not important to collect. So if the data isn't tied to a goal or objective, should you reconsider collecting that information? Probably. You know, try not to collect any data that you won't be able to use to inform your approach or practice. And then the CQI plan, you can embed scheduling CQI related tasks directly into your plan. So the tasks might include data collection, when you're going to review and make recommendations, action plan for implementation. You know, what are you doing weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually to support your CQI culture? And you might have some documents here that can help with this, right? So you might have a data dictionary, or you might have a goal tracking sheet that you want to reference. So it's, again, coming into your CQI plan and you know what you have that's supporting this effort. So moving a little further into the CQI cyclical process, consider what's needed to support your CQI team with review. Start with the basics here, right? Who's on your CQI team? How often do you rotate members of your CQI team? Are you maintaining adequate representation across your agency and across different programs? This will really help consider that you have different perspectives at the table. I've seen a lot of agencies start to add CQI related tasks into job descriptions. That can really help cement the importance of CQI and show a big emphasis of the culture of CQI in your agency. Also, identify what team members are responsible for. So for each task, ensure that they have time assigned to these duties, right? Sometimes CQI data even can be that extra duty is assigned, but we want it to be firmly cemented into a duty and know who's assigned to it. and then provide training and professional development to support the knowledge and skill sets with data. So once you've outlined your CQI team, pinpoint what success looks like for the program, your department, your agency, by identifying what criteria and standards you have for evaluating performance, for evaluating those results, right? Everybody might have a different opinion about what success looks like, but what's your overall definition of success? So this will help everyone get on the same page when they're reviewing the data. You can do this to support, by finding and building sample agendas and protocols. That way everybody can use and modify as needed based on what they might be working on or how they're reviewing the data. So, and include in your plan time for reflection on your data results. We often really zoom past, like taking time to reflect, but really want to create opportunities for your CQI team to do that. And also kind of find avenues for other staff that aren't on your CQI team to provide feedback. So keep on moving forward. Your CQI team reviews the data, then what happens next? They make recommendations. So everyone on your CQI team will have a different perspective on data. Some are going to have radical ideas, unique suggestions for recommendations, but what's your process for decision making? Whose idea is going to move forward and become the recommendation? So it's helpful to document your avenues for making decisions. Like, are we going to do consensus decision when we're making recommendations? So we'll talk and then we'll just come to consensus from that group discussion. Or maybe it's a majority vote, right? So majority wins, you take a vote, majority wins. Or it's a hierarchical decision-making process. So every CQI team has a leader. Maybe it's really that leader who makes the final decision based on the open discussion. Outlining how you're going to make decisions on which recommendations to move forward with will save you time when you're forming your recommendations. Some other things to kind of keep in mind are, how are these recommendations supporting your goals and targets that build on annual success and challenges? And so this is kind of taking lessons learned from previous recommendations and ensuring that they're working towards a goal or target. And then how is all of this connected to your strategic effort, your overall agency or program planning efforts, really making sure those goals, the recommendations you make, are aligned with those goals. And then, I keep saying and then, but the next thing would be, how are you going to share these recommendations, right? How are you going to share them with the team that's going to need to implement it, that's going to need to make that change to how they're doing something or modify something into practice, right? Back into that service delivery. So when we look at implementation, it's really important to consider your process and protocols for monitoring your recommendations and assessing your progress. So maybe you need to build your timeline for implementation by working backwards. If you've never worked backwards before, I highly recommend it. So in this example, you need to make a decision for your program by May. So that's when it has to be done. When do you need to have the data in hand to review the progress of that implementation if you need to review by May? So working backwards from that date, that end date in mind. You can also kind of take into consideration, after you look at your implementation, how are you going to share success, right? This went really well. How do we celebrate that? Do we take a moment to praise the work that was done by the CQI team for identifying that, by the programs, boots on the staff for the work that they did? How do you share that successful moment internally and be creative with that, right? You can do that internally. You can also do it externally, depending on what that recommendation was. And then flip side of that, how are you going to learn from unsuccessful implementation? How can you learn from that for that program? And then what impact could that maybe have? How do you share that learning with other departments, with your agency? So consider procedures where you work with your team and you want to pick one area for growth to focus on. You can also do it from that opportunity, right? You can take it, and it doesn't have to be kind of all over the place. You look at it from a monthly. This is what we're going to focus on this month. This is what we'll focus on quarterly. You can have that identified in your plan. So you can create and maintain a shared list of to-dos related to CQI. This also helps ensure that you're implementing, that you're keeping it alive and keeping it dynamic and evolving. And with that, you really want to look at how can you update your plan? What's your process for that? I said earlier, you should be updating your plan annually, but my rule of thumb is update it as you go. If you made a change, hey, now we're going to analyze this data weekly because we really need to keep an eye on this metric, put that in your plan. So that way, when you go back and look, like, when did we update that? Why are we doing this? Be kind to your future self and document that in your CQI plan. If not, I highly encourage you to make any changes to your CQI plan at least annually. So I've walked through quite a bit of food for thought, key considerations across the CQI plan using the components of CQI process. So I do want to transition now and go into show and share. So I'm sure by now you're like, yeah, I need to see this in practice, Jessica. Like, these are great, but I want to see one. So I'm glad you do. So today we have 2 agencies who have graciously agreed to share with you, to show you their CQI plan and then share with you how they use it in their agency and programs. So I will pause at the end of each one of those to see if you have any questions, but we're going to kind of jump into this. And so I have Anna Tepedino with DePelchin Children's Center. So Anna's going to share with you their CQI plan. I'm going to make her co-host so she can share screen. So Anna is the grant evaluator in the Grants Management and Operational Effectiveness program at DePelchin. And then after Anna, we'll have Nikkei Blue with Houston Area Women's Center share their plan. So Anna, I will stop sharing screen so you can take over.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I am sharing on the chat right now. I know Jessica said no template, but we do use a template at DePelchin, so I'm sharing the CQI template that we use for PDSA in case that's helpful for some folks. And let me go ahead and share screen. So yes, today I'm going to provide you an overview of a CQI project that I've worked on with DePelchin's fatherhood programs. So a lot of people know DePelchin because of our work with foster care and adoption, but we have another branch, which is prevention services. And I would like to talk a little bit about our parenting programs because that's where fatherhood programs kind of fall under. So DePelchin's parenting programs offer one-on-one and group parent education that use evidence-based program models like Triple P to improve the well-being of children and families with the specific goal of reducing child abuse and neglect. So fatherhood programs fall under the parenting program umbrella, and these are programs that are specific for fathers, father figures, and fathers and co-parents. So we have the Fatherhood Effect program, which offers group classes for fathers and father figures of all ages. This includes teen fathers. And the curriculum educates on topics such as showing and handling feelings, discipline, men's health, etc. And it services fathers in Harris, Fort Bend, and Brazoria counties. Then we have the DADS program, which offers 2 different cohort-based curricula. There's 24/7 DAD. It's a group specific for fathers and father figures. And then we also have supporting fatherhood involvement, SFI, which is a group designed for fathers and co-parents. And co-parents can include the child's mother, grandparents, or any supportive person assisting the father in his co-parenting role. So DADS program differs from EFFECT because DADS also offers supportive case management for fathers with a focus on career advancement, financial literacy, and workforce development. And I just also want to mention that all services are offered at no cost to families, and they are grant funded through DFPS, and the DADS program is funded through ACF or the Office of Administration for Children and Families. So at DePelchin, we recognize the value and importance of CQI. So I want to show you kind of the structure of our CQI teams at DePelchin. It starts with the Director of Quality Improvement, who oversees CQI for the agency. And then each individual program has CQI teams. And these CQI teams are comprised by program leadership and direct staff, and then grant management staff. So this would be people like myself, a grant evaluator, my boss, Emily Kramer, she has a really long title, program development and evaluation manager. And if there's any other grant management staff that should be involved in the plan, then they're brought along as well. And then our fatherhood CQI team, we meet on a monthly basis. We meet to develop and review progress on our CQI projects. And then we also meet on a quarterly basis with QI staff and other CQI teams from the agency's parenting programs. And this is really just an opportunity for all programs to share their progress, to talk about problems and ideas. So at DePelchin, we use the PSDA model, and that's the template that I dropped in the chat if you want to follow along. And the PSDA model is very simple. It's just plan, do, study, act. And the template that I shared is one that QI staff created. And each CQI team completes this template, and they update it as they make changes to their project. And they share it with the QI staff, and it's a way of communicating CQI within the agency. So I'm gonna kind of review the PSDA really briefly, and also just how we adapt it at DePelchin. It might be adapted differently in other agencies. So first, in plan, the charge really is to identify a challenge or a focus area and then set a goal or a proposed solution to address that challenge. So, we recognize there might be competing challenges, but it's important to try to stay focused and address, just one challenge at a time. So ideally in this phase, you really want to involve program staff into the planning phase as much as possible, because they're the ones experiencing these problems, these challenges, and they're also experiencing the symptoms of the problems and have direct contact with clients who can be a great source of helping understand the cause of problems. So something that we did at the agency was to host a focus group with fathers, and that's how we kind of recognize some of the challenges that they were experiencing with their program. So likewise, program staff should be involved in proposing solutions and developing goals, because in most cases, they will be implementing these solutions. So something as well is that the plan should have SMART goals. So you should try to define a target date for implementation and completion. And during plan is also when you identify responsible persons and departments for deliverables, and you begin to establish accountability. So once you have a plan and everyone's on board, you can start implementing and gathering data. So we really begin analyzing data kind of from the get-go, because this allows us to address problems with implementation early on. And we document any problems and observations that we have so that we can be proactive. When you reach the completion date, for implementing the plan, that's when you fully analyze the data with your team. And this is the study part where you compare data to predictions, reflect on challenges encountered, and you discuss lessons learned and takeaways. So this part is really important because it gets you ready for the action. So in action is where you develop a plan describing the lessons learned from the completed project and how they will be integrated into regular practice. You identify whether challenges need to be made into the next cycle. Maybe the team decides that the plan needs to be prolonged, the implementation time, or you continue into the next cycle, but you make some modifications. This is where you can be flexible, and where Jessica was saying, like, CQI is not something that's just static. It's something very flexible. So or if you're done and you can end the cycle altogether. But regardless of the direction that you take, you will develop a plan for rolling out any improvements that came out of the CQI project. So that's kind of PDSA in a nutshell. In the next couple of slides, I want to walk you through an example of how we implemented a CQI plan for our fatherhood programs. So a little bit of background on the DADS program. The DADS program launched in the spring of last year, and it was supported by a marketing campaign. So the marketing campaign designed flyers, promotional materials, created a website for the program, and it also provided the DAD staff with opportunities to speak at news networks, radio shows in English and Spanish, to be able to reach broader audiences. The DAD staff, for example, they were featured as guests on the Isaiah Factor. And so having a marketing campaign was really an improvement opportunity for us, because fatherhood programs in the past had not utilized a concentrated marketing campaign, or I hadn't worked with a marketing firm before as part of a recruitment strategy. So this time around, we had funding for this, so we wanted to use this as an opportunity. We hadn't consistently measured how outreach activities translated into referrals either. So to start off our CQI cycle, we decided to work with program leadership and direct staff. So we trained staff on CQI because a lot of times, different things get called CQI, but they're not necessarily CQI. So we wanted to make sure that everyone, was speaking the same language, and that, we were all kind of comfortable engaging with CQI. So we began by asking staff what challenges they were facing. And because the DADS was a new program, recruitment was a challenge and became a focus area. And since the DADS, and this is kind of where the marketing campaign ties back in, since the DADS program was going to be working with a marketing firm, and this was new to the agency, we wanted to measure the impact that the marketing campaign had on client recruitment. So to do this, we decided to create a referral form that would be incorporated into our marketing material. And I put in the presentation a QR code for the referral form, so you can access it through the camera on your phone. And if you want to maybe do like a mock entry, feel free, just maybe do like fake client or something, so that or if you want to provide a real referral, that would be great. So, the program, like many programs, I imagined, we launched in a virtual environment. Some programs had to pivot in this virtual environment. So most in-person activities were limited. So we realized that an electronic referral form that could be accessible, through a link or QR code would be very convenient. So we included a question in the referral form that asked, anyone who's filling it out, it asked, how did you learn about DePelchin's fatherhood programs? And we use this question to measure the impact the marketing campaign had, and also to identify different referral sources. So, I talked earlier about SMART goals. So our goals, we established 3 different goals. The first goal was we wanted 50% of fatherhood clients to be referred via the referral form. And this was to ensure consistency in the data collected and assist also with the streamlining of the referral process. This was also a new referral process, so we wanted to make sure that staff were trained and that the referral form was being used at least 50% of the time. Then we also wanted to measure the impact of the marketing campaign. So the goal there was 10% of referral providers learn about the fatherhood program via the dad's marketing campaign. And since we had a website, we also wanted to track traffic on our website. So we set a goal there as well, at least 200 visits per month on the dad's website. So we collected data on referral sources between May 1st and December 31st, 2021. And here are the different categories of referral sources that we have. We found that 7.2% of referrals received were directly linked to efforts led by the marketing campaign. So it was lower than our expectation, which we had expected at least 10% of referrals. Our top 2 referral sources were internal referrals. So these are referrals that are provided by other DePelchin staff, other DePelchin programs, and then also fatherhood program staff, which are when staff go out in the community and do outreach, and they make connections with partners and get referrals directly to them. So these were the 2 top buckets, internal referral and fatherhood program staff, and they could be inflated because, you know, in talking with staff, we noticed that at times they were inconsistent in how they categorize referral sources when they fill out the referral form. So it could be that maybe they were receiving referrals directly from a partner and omitting that information when they shared the referral data with data entry staff. And also the original referral information may have been lost for internal referrals as well. With regards to our other goal, we found that so we had anticipated 50% of referrals to enter the program through the electronic referral form. And we found that, you know, we approached this goal, we found that 46% of referrals were being received via the referral form. So, you know, we realized that having this referral form was useful during the pandemic, especially since many outreach activities were still conducted remotely through virtual events, phone calls, email, and that adding a QR code with a direct link to the referral form on promotional materials was useful. We noticed on some referrals, clients said that they learned about the program through flyers or other marketing materials. So they were using the QR code. And we couldn't collect any data on website visits because we had some, IT had some complications with getting that data pulled, but that's something that we're still learning and working on. So what actions did we take, you know, after studying this data and after talking about it and discussing? We, program staff, discussed these statistics with the marketing firm, and they identified that social media was going to be an area of growth for the second quarter because it's something that they hadn't explored before. And then referral sources for the agency's parenting programs were also reviewed. So we wanted to see how referral sources for fatherhood compared with parenting programs in general. So we found that hospitals and clinics provided most referrals for parenting programs. So as a result, the DADS team is going to reach out to hospitals and clinics in target areas, share promotional material, and educate healthcare providers about the benefits of the program. So doing more outreach with those referral sources. To discern between different referral types, and this is kind of the problem that I had pointed out initially, where, you know, internal referrals and fatherhood program staff referrals were kind of hard to know. It was hard to know, like, if they were really just internal referrals or just fatherhood referrals. So to discern between those referral types, data management staff, we're currently working on ways to improve the referral process. So this might involve modifying the referral form or creating a category system for data entry staff to use so that data is categorized kind of in a very systematic way. Also, program staff have received additional training on how to use the referral form, and how to, if it's a referral that they accrued, how to provide that information to data entry staff through the referral form. So we're actually going to be starting a new CQI project for the next cycle. But even though we're going to do that, we're still going to monitor these specific goals and share results with the team on a regular basis. And it's one of our ways in which we're going to integrate this plan into our practice. So this is me. This is my contact information if you would like to connect or if you have any questions. And I'll stop sharing.
That was great, Anna. Thank you so much. Let's give her a big virtual round of applause, real round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing what y'all are doing at DePelchin. So, you know, a couple of things I picked up on that really resonated with me were, you know, you were looking at your program and then what was the focus of that, you know, marketing effort for the dad's parenting program, and then how is that being linked to the goals of that referral, and then showing like it was 7% and the different things you talked about there, like that really helped to shape in like your CQI plan, what it looks like at DePelchin, and then how you're using it. And right in real life, you have multiple things also happening, like different goals, different projects. And so I like how you're continuing to monitor this one as you add in different ones you're looking to monitor. So thank you for sharing that. If you have questions for Anna, please use the chat. And thank you for sharing your form. I appreciate the PDSA. I was trying to think of it's a cousin to the CQI process, right? Like some people use PDSA as a way to do their CQI work, and that's great. It's all in the family. So with that, I want to now hand it over to Nikkei Blue. She's the Chief Quality Officer at Houston Area Women's Center for her show and share.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let's see, let me share my screen. All right. So good morning, everybody. I'm Nikkei Blue with the Houston Area Women's Center. Before I talk a little bit about our CQI plan, I just wanted to share with you all information about our organization for those of you who may not know about us. Houston Area Women's Center, we have been around for a little over almost 45 years. This is our 45th anniversary. We are a domestic violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking organization. So we serve people who are experiencing violence and try to provide them with the tools, the support, the services, whatever it is they need to get out of and leave their situation when they're ready to leave. The core of our work focuses in 3 main areas: crisis response, survivor empowerment, and prevention of violence through our violence prevention and education program. Last year, we served close to 64,000 people, mainly through our hotline, whom were mostly women and mostly Black and Hispanic persons of color. I've been with Hawk for a little over 2 years. My background is in public health. I've been in the public health and the nonprofit arena for about 17 years, mainly working through AIDS Foundation Houston, which is another nonprofit social support organization. I was actually hired by our CEO, Emily Whitehurst, to develop and really formalize our CQI plan. She brought me on, not because the agency wasn't doing CQI, we were. She brought me on to build out and make the existing systems that we had better, and to add new systems to help with gaps and things like that. So when I came to Hawk, I brought a lot of my experience from AIDS Foundation Houston with me. However, I recognize that my experience at AFH wasn't what I would need to actually implement CQI at Hawk. When it comes to a CQI program and a CQI plan, the first place where you have to start is assessing your organization, assessing the different tools and things that currently exist. And you have to recognize that every agency is different. So I was really glad that Jessica said, hey, I'm not sharing a template, because you really can't take it from one agency and put it into another, because they're like two totally different cultures and organisms. So I probably spent my first 3 months at Hawk evaluating and assessing what was going on in the current systems, talking to leaders about what was working well, what wasn't working well. And then I started the process of writing the plan. So if you're new to your agency, or if you're the one that's going to be responsible for creating your agency's plan, start there. Start with an assessment. And find out what the leadership wants, what they like, what they don't like. For us, when I started to document our CQI system and process, I started with, okay, what are the already existing meetings and groups that occur? What are their purposes? What are their goals and the tools that they use? The first version of my plan, and what y'all see here is the current content page of our current CQI plan. But the first version of my plan, it was double these pages. It was about 30 pages. And it was way more information than people wanted to see. But I put it all in there because I was initially attempting to speak to multiple audiences all at once: our funders, our staff, our board of directors, our future funders, and other agency leaders. Today, this is the final contents of our plan, and it's only 10 pages. I hope that when I edit it annually, that we don't add a whole lot more to it, because I think 10 pages is, it's small enough for anyone to consume. So before it was the 10 pages that y'all just saw, like I said, it was about 25, 30 pages. This was the title of it. And I had actually two titles. I called it the Quality Management Program and also the Continuous Quality Improvement Plan. This caused me to have to write a paragraph or two within the plan that explained what the program was and what the plan was and why they were different. It was very confusing and it was too much detail, but it made sense to me. So just letting y'all know, I share this so that y'all know this is an iterative process. This is one where some people are going to like it, some people aren't. The goal is for you to start somewhere, put something in writing, have something that you can show to leadership, and all the way down through your organization, from the frontline staff all the way up to the leadership. So this was my first version 1 of the plan. When I got to about version 3 of our CQI plan, I worked with Emily, our CEO, on edits to the plan. And the advice that I got from her was to literally forget everybody else and focus on the goal. And when we talked, I was like, okay, well, what was my goal? And I eventually came to realize that the overarching goal that we were trying to do at Hawk, because we've been around for 45 years, we do great work, we do great service. What's the goal now of implementing this plan? What's going to be the purpose that can resonate with everyone in the agency? And what I came to was that the overarching goal is for Hawk staff to understand what CQI is and see that they have a role in the organization's quality improvement activities. To help them understand that the intention of leaders, our leaders and supervisors, it isn't to place blame, but to instead have us all collectively focus on the problems that prevent us or make it challenging for us to serve more people and continuously improve the work that we're doing. So I removed all the elements that had to do with other audiences, funders, grant writing related things that was just, it was over people's heads. I removed all that and just kept what our staff would need to understand and implement CQI as an individual, employee, and also collectively. So as far as our title is concerned, the title of the plan now is Compliance, Risk, and Quality Management Plan. I actually got that from Ella Conrad, the Director of Compliance over at Planned Parenthood. And also, yeah, don't feel free to borrow from others. Build your own and borrow from others. So in our plan, we talk about what CQI is. The plan starts with the United Way's definition of CQI. And a quote that I like, that I'm hopeful that it helps people feel less defensive about implementing improvement activities. Let's not forget, it's you and me versus the problem, not you versus me. I say that often, and even when I'm in the middle of an improvement process and working on stuff, if I feel like the other person who I'm talking to is getting defensive or feels like I'm blaming them for something, I try to pull it back and say, no, this isn't me placing blame or wanting to be negative towards you. This is about how we both collectively work to improve. So I love that quote and give that to everyone. So where we introduce CQI is in our our new hire orientation trainings. I do about a 20-minute training with all new hires that are onboarding to staff, to the agency. And in that training, I introduce them to the concepts of CQI and also the tools that we use to identify and solve our problems. So PDSA is definitely the top one on my list. We also talk about the MOCA, which is, Google it if you don't know what the MOCA is. I love the MOCA because it helps us to, as a collective, identify an owner and a leader of projects, of programs, of areas that need attention. And then the SBAR is a really cool tool as well. If you've got a complex problem and you need multiple people in multiple departments to kind of lean in and help you to fix the problem or to provide their input, the SBAR kind of gives us a shared language that we can use in order to explain what the problem is and then to also provide recommendations about how to fix it. So with these three, when I'm doing the training, I also provide our new hires with a flyer, virtual flyer, of course, that they can use and keep on their desktop or wherever they want to keep so that they can actually use the tools as well. In my plan, we also include what the structure of our CQI program is and the key people and committees that are involved in our quality improvement activities. So everybody's who's a nonprofit, we all have board of directors. So under our board of directors, our finance committee is a committee that plays the biggest role in CQI. And for us at Hawk, we consider things like our single audit as a part of CQI because we have auditors that come in, they audit our financials, they audit our records, they audit our client files, and they provide us with feedback about how and where we can improve. That audit subcommittee is the one that leads that. Also under our finance committee, we have a risk subcommittee that every yearly, but for the major one happens every 3 years, is a agency assessment of all of the departments when it comes to risk in general. Then when it comes to staff, our CEO is Emily Whitehurst. I'm the Chief Quality Officer. So I lead or kind of help to help the agency and the other leaders when it comes to their involvement in CQI. The two new committees that we added when I joined the organization was a risk management roundtable committee and a grant management roundtable. The risk committee is what you consider a CQIT of Hawk. This particular committee evaluates incident reports, client complaints, overall agency risk as it relates to operations and things like that. The grant management roundtable for us is an opportunity for all of our program leaders and the leaders in the different departments to come together and to work on improving the grant management process. During COVID, Hawk went from maybe, let's say, an average of 20 grants, government related and foundation grants, to about 40. So that's a lot. That's a major increase. So we had to come up with a way to stay on top of the management of all those grants. And then helping me out, a director of compliance and quality management, Lan Nguyen. She helps from the perspective of leading our client experience and feedback roundtable. So it's always definitely important to get client feedback. She helps us to implement those feedback surveys, reviewing them, analyzing them, and making sure that the outcomes that we're setting for the agency that we're meeting. I also want to highlight some of the our major leadership meetings. These meetings occur weekly, they occur monthly or quarterly. They all address a particular area of either quality improvement, quality assurance, grant management, data management, compliance, or even the operations for the agency. If anyone wants the details of those committees and the tools that we use in them, I can definitely share. And then finally, at the end of our plan, for anybody that is wondering, okay, what are the major activities? When will they occur? And those type of details. I have a work plan at the end of our plan that just outlines what the activity is that we say we're going to complete, who is responsible for getting it done or leading it, and then when will it occur. If we don't do anything else CQI related, we want to make sure we're doing these. And so this kind of lists out what that is. And that is it. That is Hawk's continuous quality improvement plan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikay, for sharing some truths there along the way. But yes, please, round of applause, virtual round of applause. You shared you got kind of vulnerable with us there for some of like how you started your plan, your kind of journey with it at Hawk. So thank you so much for that. And I love how you focused on like, this is not for grant writing. It's not for funders. Like this is for us, for internal. And that can really help ensure, again, that roadmap. Everybody's on the same page. We're all, working towards the same thing. That was so great to see. I also really appreciated that work plan at the end. I think that's a great kind of prioritizing, right? Like we have different objectives, different things that come up that need our attention, but at the minimum, this is what we need to be doing. And I think that's a great focus area for large to small agencies, you know, because your capacity, your time is so precious. And so what is it that has to be done that, you know, to support our CQI work? Thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have time for questions. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat. Would love to, you know, while we have McKay and Anna here, would love that. We will be sharing this out afterward. I'm going to share screen because I want, you know, if there's, I don't see too many questions coming in, but that's okay. I want to make sure we have time to reflect on this information. So I want to do a self-reflection moment for, I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. So it's 10:08 and at 10:18 we'll come back, but I've got some prompts for you. If I can share screen again, here we go. So here you can see your prompts for this self-reflection. So go ahead and start kind of reflecting because it's what are you still circling with? What are the questions you have? Drop those questions in the chat as they're coming up for you. And then what are you squared away with? What do you really get? You're really excited about. And then what's your next step? What are you going to do for your agency, for your program to bring this content from the session today back into creating, maintaining, updating your CQI plan? So give until about 10:18 to do that. It'll be quiet. I don't have any background music. I'm sorry. And I'm not the one to sing of mission and strategy. You don't want me to do that. So. Take that back to recording. Hopefully you're still self-reflecting. I really love that people were dropping their self-reflections in the chat. Please continue to do that. But I know time is so precious and you're probably having to hop off into another meeting that's going to start at 10:30. So thanking everyone for attending. And please keep dropping your self-reflections in the chat. But if anybody wants to share out their self-reflection, especially if it is a circle, what are you circling with? What are the questions you still have? Would love to give that opportunity right now as well. You can use the little raise hand feature or just unmute. I'm pretty casual. Oh, Stephanie.
Thanks, Jessica. I love what Nick Hayes said about, and saw also some comments in the chat about this, about incorporating CQI into new staff training. And I want to start doing that. We have done some training with our staff on the CQI circle that Jessica went over at the beginning, but I'm wondering what other things people have found are really helpful for all staff to understand, regardless of what their role is in the organization.
That question, would love for those that are doing this to answer. For me, I've done something similar, but for interns. And we talked about because they would be a part of like the assessments, right? Like they have to administer an assessment or collect a survey from someone. And so we would go through like on the high level for each program, what the survey is they're collecting, where it goes, like, because there were 2 different databases in use. And so this is why you're entering this into that system, and then what we do with it. So kind of giving them the bird's eye view from each program area so they can see that they just weren't coming to intern at this big agency, but this is what it looks like across all, even if they only see one little sliver of it. That's what we did. Anyone else? Nikkei, do you have anything to add, or anyone else doing something similar?
Anybody else? Everyone's like, no. So I think that's part of the reason why my husband would tell me that I'm too truthful, but I like being vulnerable, because when you share what you're working on and what worked well and what didn't work well, it actually makes other team members and other staff feel more comfortable and create a safer space. It's like, this is something that we're all creating as we go along. Like, Anna, I'm totally going to be using the template you shared. And I think one thing I've learned in the last couple of years is prioritizing. And so that new hire orientation, us doing that as each new team member comes in, was one of the things we prioritized, because our executive leadership team, they know what CQI is. They know how to do it. It's part of the reason why they're, at that level in the organization. But how do we get everybody to see that it's not just going to your leader and that's how you get the problem resolved, because your leader's going to fix it for you, but how do you as an individual use these tools, use the resources that you have to maybe not solve all of your own problems, but definitely put more into it so that there's less for everyone to do. I just went everywhere. Probably didn't answer her question. Sorry.
Jessica, I guess
Linda.
I was just going to say, you asked what we were circling about, and I feel like this has given me some really good components to work with, and also helped me to look at, like, what are we already doing? But then I guess circling about how do we bring this together into more of a plan and intentional thing, because I feel like we have pieces of it, but I feel like we also need more, like, a cohesive plan so that we could do something like when we onboard people, explain that to them versus just kind of having little pieces floating around. So I appreciate everybody sharing, the two especially sharing what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as starting out, kind of realizing, ooh, we don't really have a plan, but you have a lot of information linked to CQI in every place, assessing what is it you have, what is it you don't have from an agency perspective, and then from all your individual program areas as well. How is that all linking together? What do you have? What do you not have? Just starting there to craft out that plan. And for the areas where you're missing, lean on the components of the cyclical process, right? Service delivery, data collection, review, recommendations, implementation. Like, is there something somewhere that you don't have anything that you need to focus on as you kind of formulate your plan? So I've shared in the chat kind of my key considerations from United Way for creating your CQI plan, and Anna shared their PDSA, and we're, asking for we'll have the slides and this recording available that you can reflect on. So I'm glad that we had, some people sharing what they were circling with, so we can all continue to grow and learn together. And with that, I'm going to put in the chat the feedback survey. Always want to, your feedback's a gift. So I want to make sure that you share that with us so we can continue to make sure our coffee and quality are meeting your needs, and that what you hear today, you bring back into your agency, to your work. And so that also leaves me to the RSVP for our May session, which I'm so excited about because it is strengths and challenges of CQI. And so we maybe asked an application question somewhere along the way about what are your challenges and strengths with CQI. So we're going to quantify that and see what's coming up for everyone, and then ask everybody who's attended, kind of how does that match up? And I love Nikay's quote about, it's not about you, because that can come up when you're implementing and you're talking about changing things. Like, people get real defensive and get real protective, which is a challenge I've often heard about with CQI. And so glad we'll be able to have that May session to really share that space together to work through and get suggestions and ideas and inspiration for different strengths and challenges and what we can do, all to strengthen our CQI cultures. So with that, thank you all so much for your time. I'm 8 minutes before 10:30, so that gives everybody a little bio break. But before you jump off, please do the survey and register for the next session, because we'd love for you to attend our May session. And a special thank you to Nikkei and Anna for sharing their CQI plans with us today. So thank you.